Paeton Chavis is a playwright, director, and actor based in Brooklyn, New York. Her debut in both playwriting and directing, How to Dispose of Your Dead Dad's Sex Doll, which she also performed in, premiered in 2021 at the Vino Theater in Brooklyn. In 2022, she was named Best Director at the SheNYC Arts Playwriting Festival for her work on the Gabrielle Wagner Mann play Pot Odds, performed at the Connelly Theater in New York City. In October of 2023, Paeton directed the site-specific play Spark, performed at a real sex club in Chinatown, New York. Most recently, she directed and performed in the short play Curse that she co-wrote along with Tais Szilagi and performed at the Attic at the Tank in June 2024, and closed a 6-month run at Call Us Villains, an immersive magic-themed theater experience, as well as being the playwright of Outcall, in which a run-of-the-mill outcall turns out to be anything but when a New York City escort and artist discovers her terminally ill client's true intentions. You can find out more about Paeton at her website, PaetonChavis.com. That's PaetonChavis.com. Joining Paeton tonight is her acting partner in Outcall, Isaac J. Connor. Isaac J. Connor is a New York City-based stage, screen, and voice actor, director, producer. Winner of Best Actor Award by the New Jersey Film Awards for the lead in No Good Deed 2023, and winner of Best Short by the Short Shorts Film Festival for his role as the lead in Hey, I Like Those Short Shorts in 2024. Recent off-Broadway credits include directing the premiere of Forever and Merlin in the Scialli Productions' new musical Magic Box. He had a supporting role in Born Evil, was recently installed as an interactive hologram of Dean Rusk in The White House in Action, had voiceover work on the docu-series Murph the Surf, is the official host of the World B-Boy Championships, a spokesperson for Friday Plans Medication, and continued work on his podcast, The Collective Perspective. He's ever grateful for other artists and to the audiences for their support for us. You can find out more about Isaac at his website, isaacjconner.com. That's ISAACJCONNER.com. Joining them is also the stage manager of Outcall, Marion Fontaine. Marion Fontaine is a New York City-based director, actor, singer, and stage manager. In the past year, she has been directing a couple of short films in the city, including It Just Feels Good or C'est un Caprice, available on YouTube. She directed her first full-length play, Ordinary, for the New York Theater Festival this past June. Marion writes, directs, performs, films, and edits. She values live theater for the human connection. Marion loves directing stories about humans, with humans, for humans. She just closed the original off-Broadway immersive show Call Us Villains after a year running in New York City. She also released her music video DDA a month ago, which can be found on YouTube. Marion is so grateful to work with her friend Paeton Chavis behind the scenes of her new original play, Outcall. You can find out more about Marion by visiting her website, FontaineMarion.com. That's FONTAINEMARION.com. Welcome, Paeton. Hi, Paeton.
Hi,
and
guys.
And hi, Marion.
Hello.
Hello there. So, Paeton, when did art enter your life?
I've been a performer since I was a freaking baby. My grandmother loves to tell me the story of taking me to Barney Live and being brought up on stage and bouncing up and down very happily and basking in all of the attention. And my mother likes to tell me about how I used to copy Chinese calligraphy that I saw. I don't remember where, but I would, find pens, colored pencils, crayons, and stuff like that, and copy down Chinese calligraphy. Just always been drawn to art, to creativity. But professionally, I do remember that all happened much later. But art has just always been, I feel like it's just ingrained in my DNA and performance.
I feel that and I understand that. So think about your first memory of you doing anything artistic. What is that memory?
The Joy Bells, the children's choir at my family church, the church that I grew up in, Eastern Star Baptist Church. I was 5 years old. It was my first rehearsal, choir rehearsal, and they were actually auditioning for solos. And I auditioned for a solo and I got it. My very first day, I got a solo for the upcoming Sunday performance. I remember how it goes. Oh, he's a mighty healer. Give glory to God. Oh, he's a mighty healer. Give glory to God. Oh, he's a mighty healer. Give glory to God. He's a mighty healer. Give glory to God. Very simple. But yeah, that was it.
Beautiful. Thank you for serenading us.
Oh, you're so welcome.
All right. And Marion, I would love to ask you the same question. When did art enter your life?
Well, I always said I've been lucky to have parents that introduced me to art since birth. They are all kind of musicians in their own way. Everybody in my family plays an instrument. So since we were little, we would always listen to good music. We would always be trained for that. And yeah, kind of similarly drawing to art. I was always touching any type of different art, um, and directing my little cousins since they were able to walk. I was just hiring them in my plays. Every vacation there would be a play at the end of the week, and yeah, directing. And I know when I got to performing, there's a very memory that I remember very well of me watching a play, and it was at the moment when everybody was bowing and having so much fun, and when you see the actor behind the character, and I saw the fun that they were having just being out there, and that's when I decided to go to the performing. And yeah, I went in a conservatory for that in France, and discovered multiple different types of art. I was still playing an instrument, singing, and acting as well, and still painting some art on the sides.
Very nice. A lot of us are what some call multi-hyphenate, but we actor, director, producers, or, actor, singer, playwright, whatever. There's a whole bunch of different types of artists that we are. Some of us are just really, I think, Renaissance people, and that's certainly how I would describe you. So
Thank you.
yeah, so that exploring and discovery, you said you've always been an artist, and the first memory had involved your singing, but talk about some of the other forms of art that you explore and when that curiosity started. For instance, I know that you love performance art and you do things in parks, and you write and you act. And so talk about when some of that other stuff started to find its way into your life.
Heck yeah, I would absolutely love to. And Marion's recounting of her history totally jogged heck of memories of myself specifically choreographing. I didn't direct plays so much when I was younger. That came later. But I used to choreograph dances for the kids at my daycare all the freaking time. I started a dance troupe. I choreographed dances for myself and my brother, for myself and I love dance. I am not trained. I took some dance classes. That's not really my interest. I love to tell stories with movement, and I end up, for whatever reason, choreographing some sort of dance for literally every show that I direct. So and I absolutely love it. Writing, I've loved writing is actually my mom's favorite thing that I do um artistically. And I started writing short plays, short stories, poetry very young, maybe around age 8, 8 or 9. I wrote a full-length novel when I was 15. I wrote it in spiral-bound notebooks during class time. I was truly not paying attention, but it looked like I was. It looked like I was taking notes, but I was writing. a novel. Um, and what else? Directing, like I said, came later as an adult, but when I was called to direct Pot Odds, um, I I had I had only directed How to Dispose of Your Dead Dad Sex Doll kind of out of necessity because I wanted to do that show that I wrote and act in it. But when I directed Pot Odds, I don't know, something just kind of like triggered like a switch flipped, and I was like, I love this. And I thought I was like just gonna be a director for a while. That's how much I loved it. But I realized that I can do absolutely anything and everything I want. So I do that. Yeah, my entire family first knew me as a singer, and that was what I was for probably like uh 10 years exclusively, a little less than that, maybe like 8 years exclusively, until acting really came into play next. Um, as far as performance art, Isaac, all of the elements of performance art that have been written into the play are from my imagination. I've not done that yet. I plan to, but I just conceived of that for the sake of the play. This play is actually my first performance art vehicle. It serves many purposes, and that's one of the purposes. um yeah, I've been so inspired by so many different performance artists that I have seen documentaries about, read about, seen online, and I want to do that, so I created this opportunity to do so.
Fantastic. I'm happy to stand corrected that, uh, yeah, when we had talked about Outcall being such a memoir and Dave being an amalgam of these different people, I think I just kind of surmised that the performance art was also part of your repertoire. So that's exciting. Maybe that'll
Yeah.
be something in your future, what you might do with performance art. You referenced your parents, so I want to ask a double pronged question here. One is, how influential were they in helping you unfold as an artist? And then what did your parents do? Were they artists in their own right in some way?
No. I am the sole artist in my immediate family and one of very few in my extended family. Um, my family is very famously in our community lawyers. Um, criminal law, family law, adoption, stuff like that. Corporate litigation, all of that stuff. And it was kind of not expected, but supposed that I would follow in that line for probably about 3 years, but it became like my first 3 years of life. But it became very apparent super early on that that just wasn't where it was at. Frankly, because I would tell people I was a very outspoken child. I'd be like, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be I think in the beginning I was going to be like a singer or a pop star, something like that. And so that the influence came from, honestly, I think I was most exposed to art through my grandmother, who would take me to see live shows all the time, like literally all the time. So that was where my early theatrical experience came from. But later on, after my parents, and it really didn't take much from my memory for them to accept that law was not where it was at for me. Uh, they they just determined that whatever I was going to do, I was going to do it well. And so they afforded me multiple opportunities like throughout my life, just like constant opportunities to perform, get better, take lessons. I took voice lessons, I took some dance lessons for sure. I played an instrument in school. I played the oboe. They I was always in uh at first the school musical. In middle school and fourth grade was my first school musical. That was a very interesting experience, probably worth talking about. But then, the school musical through 7th grade, and then community theater, and then professional theater as a teen, blah blah blah. They always made sure that I, got to rehearsals, that I had everything I needed to do what I needed to do. Summer theater conservatory, theater camp, all that stuff. The Indianapolis Children's Choir I was in for 5 years, taking trips abroad with them. So yeah, they afforded me lots and lots of opportunities to both perform and get better at performing.
So really, no wonder you're a songbird. You had, in your formative years, you were constantly doing something involving your voice.
Mm-hmm. I was very extensively trained. Yep. In singing. Yep.
Now, you referenced your grandmother. So
Mm-hmm.
was she just an appreciator of the arts, or was she also an artist?
Just an appreciator. She was a businesswoman. She owned a home health care business that she sold probably about 10 years ago. She's retired now, but she's very much a businesswoman, entrepreneur, CEO. She just appreciated theater so much, and she appreciated going to see it with me and taking me to see it.
Right on. And then you referenced your 4th grade thing you wanted me to come back to. What was that?
I did want you to come back to it because it was my very first show, my very first musical. And it was interesting because, okay, mind you, I live in Fishers. It was an all white school, almost all white. I was one of like probably 5 black kids in the entire school, and I'm not exaggerating. I it was New Britain Elementary, and I was the only black kid in the musical, and I had multiple solos. What they decided to do, interestingly enough, the play was called Freedom Bound, and it was about Ellis Island immigrants, and it's specifically a family of Ellis Island immigrants. Because all of the public schools in Indiana, up to a certain grade, had to be based on American history. All their musicals had to be based on American history for some reason. And so it was a musical written by a teacher about Ellis Island immigrants, and I was a very good singer very early on. Um, as I recall, and maybe this was just my overwhelming confidence at that age, as I recall, one of the best, if not the most proficient singers in the cast. So what they decided to do was take the lead role of Maria and split it. They had me sing for Maria, but I was not given the role. The speaking aspect of the role was given to another girl, a white girl. And so she got all the lines and she got the character name and everything. But when it was time for her to sing, I sang for her, which did not strike me as odd at all. I just thought I was a star, and I was happy that I got to sing so much. But yeah, that happened then. This was in the year 2000. Yeah,
Yeah, wow.
24 years ago. Just about
I'm
25.
yeah, yeah. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, right. Right? It did not strike me as odd at all until like way later.
Wow. Was it not until, I mean, you said it didn't phase you as odd at all. So when did it occur to you, oh, like there's some racist shit going on here. When did that occur to you?
So much later that it just didn't like have any emotional effect. It was just like, oh, that's fascinating. Probably like because I didn't think about it for a long time, probably like 3 years ago.
That's so nuts. I mean, it's yeah. Did anybody else react to that at the time that you also like when you in retrospect you went, "Oh yeah, and my one friend said something or else," or the teacher said something. Did anything else occur to you after the fact?
No, yo, this was like straight out of the 90s. It was very much like um racism is no longer a thing. Deny, deny, deny. We're not even going to no one said a damn thing. It was just
Mm,
not, especially in the Midwest, like people were not talking about race. Um and ethnocentrism and bias, despite the fact that it was still very much happening and people very much did not know how to handle anyone who was like remotely different. Um Especially not ethnically. I think the only person who I remember raising an eyebrow at any aspect of this, any aspect of the play was my grandfather very early on. I told him, I shared with him the name. I remember it's like a core memory now. Shared with him the name of the musical Freedom Bound, and he said, "Oh my God, is it about slaves?" And then that's where the memory ends, but it was not. I assured him that it wasn't about slaves. But yeah, no, that conversation was not had, and if anyone had any thoughts, they didn't share it with me.
and your family didn't come to see that and go, "Wait, why is my little girl being?" Yeah, what did your family react to? How did they
They
react to that?
absolutely, they came to see it. They didn't share any thoughts that they had about it with me. We're not that kind of family. No, if they had any trepidation, they would keep it to themselves or share it with each other, but not with me.
Mm. You were in Indiana until what? When did you leave?
That's an well, I left more than once. The first time I left Indiana was to go live in Texas. That was in 2011. I lived in Texas for a couple of years, stop over for a few months in Chicago, and then Indiana again. Uh yep, went back to Indiana for a few more years and then officially left for New York in July of 2018.
So, rather than gloss over Texas and Chi-Town, can we talk about what drew you to those places and what the experience was like? Why did you go to Texas?
Sure. Well, I went to Texas to go to a long-term mental health facility on a ranch in Needville called Full Shear Ranch Academy. Or we called it FRA. It was for young women ages 18 to 25. I was 19 and 20 at the time. And yeah, so I lived on a ranch for a bit and participated in group therapy, um, horse chores, a lot of sitting around. Uh, yeah, so that was why I went to Texas.
And who decided that that would be a good idea?
Um, Myself and my grandmother. She
So,
ended up paying for it. Yeah.
but you don't have to dive farther in this if you don't want to, but it certainly is curious. It's makes me curious. So, what was your struggle that said, "I need some help"?
I was having a really, really tough time, especially that summer. A lot of things kind of like years of hardship with my parents, particularly my father, like emotional turmoil. And to be quite frank, there was a lot of abuse going on, just kind of came to a head. And I was staying with them that summer for a little while, but I got into like one final argument with my dad that just went way, way, way too far. And then he had thrown a bunch of my stuff into trash bags and I got him to stop. But then the next day I grabbed those same bags and I left. And I never went back, except to stay later after he had already left. My parents are divorced now, but they weren't at the time. Um, I came back to stay for a short period of time, but my father had left by then, and there was, they were separated and everything, so it was significantly emotionally safer. But that was when I moved out and lived a couple of other places, stayed in my car for a while, um, had some pretty awful and sexually traumatic experiences that summer as well. Was smoking a lot of weed, um, just kind of aimless and miserable, um, neck deep in addiction and what is it? And I was also rehearsing and performing a play at the time, which is crazy that I was also doing that. But I actually missed a couple of rehearsals because everything. I would normally not miss a single rehearsal, but I just ghosted a rehearsal once because it got so bad. Um, and so yeah, it just what I just needed a hard reset. And I just needed to get out of there because I felt absolutely surrounded by just pain. I didn't feel loved or taken care of by anybody, and I just needed to go.
Thanks for sharing. I'm sorry. Uh, when did you feel like you got everything you needed or you could get from that experience in Texas that you decided now I need to go back home?
Yeah, that program was not very good. They only, for an intensive outpatient program, it was surprisingly untherapeutic. Um, you only got, I don't think it exists anymore, to be honest. You could only see your therapist once a week. After the first month you got 2 therapy sessions a week, and then only once a week, which is what you would get in outpatient. um and then after that, even less, like once every 2 weeks you would see your therapist. And the the girls were very difficult to deal with, and I'm not going to say that I was always easy to deal with, but they're very, very difficult to deal with. There was a lot of fighting. And eventually I graduated to the sort of halfway in, halfway out portion of the program where they send you to apartments, designated apartments in Sugarland, and you have to get a job, and they give you a weekly allowance and stuff like that. But I just kind of went buck wild in that time. I would go to raves with the girls who flunked the program, and we smoked weed and spice. I don't know if anybody remembers spice, but you used to be able to get it at grocery stores, and it was sold as potpourri, but it would get you high. And basically, I got kicked out of the program. That's right. I got kicked out because I um, peed dirty too many times, and I skipped group therapy sessions. It happened like right after I skipped one group therapy session. They just barged in because I was sleeping. They just barged in and were like, "You're out of here. You're either going to rehab and you can come back, or you're just out." And I was like, "Okay, I'm out." And I decided to live with my boyfriend. I got a boyfriend in Texas, and I lived with him and his parents and his older brother for a time before I just got sick of it and left to
And that
try to
was
a dream of performance in Chicago. Hmm?
okay. Yeah. So that's why you went to Chicago?
Yeah.
How long were you there?
4 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why such a short stint in Chicago?
Well, I was gonna stay longer, but the person who promised to be my agent apparently just wanted to have sex with me, and so I was staying in a room. I was staying in a room in an older man's large house who did not try to come on to me, but who told me that I needed to domesticate myself, and who was under I know and who was uh seemingly doing illegal stuff. He didn't make it very clear to me, but he was doing something illegal. He had some illegal business or whatever. But I was just I did not get a record deal like the guy promised me. Again, I was 20, and I was just dancing exotically at an admittedly really good what is it, strip club. It was I think Club 360 is what it was called, and I liked it. I was making a lot of money, but unfortunately I got fired from there and then started working at a dive where I didn't make nearly as much money. And then I let the guy who owned the house borrow my car, but he stayed out way, way, way longer than he promised. And I didn't, and I was just like, I was so like paranoid, even though I was staying in his house and I knew he would have to come back eventually. I was freaking out because he wasn't answering his phone. I was like, what are you doing with my car? You have my car. I can't go anywhere. I can't. So I ended up calling the cops, and he got very, very mad because he was doing illegal things and he didn't want the cops there. And they were like, hey, you probably need to go. This guy is clearly really upset. And if we leave here and something happens to you, uh, we're not gonna answer the phone. Basically, this lady cop was like, it's on you if you decide to stay. But clearly this guy is really pissed off. I'm like, okay, so I'll leave. And then I drove to Indianapolis.
So how long were you back home this time before you decided to finally bounce to New York?
This time for like 4 years. Yep, I stayed with my grandparents.
So what was that, just a 4 year like reset, get back to me kind of experience, or were you, I mean that's a long time, especially when you're that young. So what did you do for those 4 years?
Oh my gosh. So I went to Indianapolis and then I went to Bloomington, and I lived in Bloomington, uh, which is still in Indiana, with some old middle school friends that did not go well. I was not a very good roommate. I was just all over the place and I was drinking a lot. And wasn't super considerate. Also was dating a guy who was on meth. This was a very very chaotic time. I was dating a guy who was on meth, and he stole my car. He gave it back, but he stole my car and left it in Indianapolis, where he lived and could buy meth. Eventually, he showed me where to pick it up. He let me know where to pick it up, and my dad picked me up from Bloomington and drove me to my grandparents' place in Indiana, and at one point in Indianapolis. And at one point, I was just in the because I was just exhausted. I was exhausted at my life. My life was so freaking exhausting. Um, my grandfather was driving me around one day shortly after I had moved into their place. Um, and he was listening to Eckhart Tolle tapes on the on his car radio that he had checked out from the library. And it's so crazy. It was like a spiritual switch flipped. I don't know if all listeners are aware of Eckhart Tolle, but he's a spiritual teacher, and he teaches the power of being in the present moment and the power of spirit, and also helps people to identify the influence of the ego and sort of use meditative practices to gain distance from it and to um, exit the misery of one's story, the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves and our lives and all our limitations and stuff like that. And like I said, a switch flipped, and for the next 3 months I meditated all day, every day. nonstop. I would listen to the tapes. I would go to the library and pick up his books, more tapes and CDs, and I would just sit in the dark and meditate for hours and hours and hours, and sometimes like totally forget to eat. Um, but yeah, I did that for 3 months before I decided to. It was like a total spiritual factory reset because I knew it's like it was really the only option other than like total like obliteration, like annihilation, which my spirit would just not allow me to do. So really the only option was like radical change. Which had to start from the inside. So I did that, and then I slowly started reintegrating into the world, got a little job at a movie theater, and yeah, re-entered creativity a little while after that, by joining the theater department at the University of Indianapolis.
So a lot of people that do listen to this podcast uh, are very aware that I'm a spiritual person, and so I know that they've heard me talk about Eckhart before. A lot of them are familiar with Eckhart. The Power of Now was I wouldn't say it was more pivotal of an experience for me than certain other teachers, but it's up there with some of the most important. Um, that book is some of the most important teachings I've had, and I also wanted to ask you because as I've shared with you, finding out about your meditations, your practices and experiences, I've had friends that have done things like gone to Tibet and done month-long retreats that's just meditation, which blows my mind because my I started meditating without instruction. It was just something that was automatic after my spiritual awakening when I was 19, and I just started doing it. I put myself in a circle of candles, or I would just light some incense and put on some music, or whatever it was. I just would start meditating, and it was apparent after a certain period of time, after doing some Buddhist, um, I wouldn't call them retreats, but sitting in with a Buddhist and just learning more about Buddhism, it occurred to me that, oh wow, there's a lot of different ways to meditate. And now I know that there's as many ways to meditate as there are to sing a song. There's so many different ways you can do it. The way that I meditated in my early years was just on nothingness, because we give our body a chance to shut down and relax for whatever 5 to 8 hours a night. If you're in New York, or more like 2, but you give your body a chance to reset. But our mind frequently, especially in today's world, many people don't know that you can shut it off and that you should shut it off, and it should not be running your life. Um, so the nothingness was really important to me, and that's something that I still very frequently do. I do little mini meditations throughout a day, and just breathing, just focusing on the breath, getting back to nothing, and which is, as far as my spiritual understanding, that nothing is actually everything. You're getting back to the source the more you do that. What what was that meditative experience like for you? In what ways did you meditate? Um, and how did that serve you going forward?
Sure. So my meditative practice began quite differently than it's right now. I do largely visualization now, and I think it was visualization to begin with. I just followed the instructions of Eckhart Tolle in the new, I think, yeah, the book that I was that first introduced me to Eckhart Tolle, that book on tape, was A New Earth, and I read The Power of Now after that. But he has a guided meditation in there that is all about the body, getting into the body and physical sensation. He instructs one to feel the aliveness, I think he calls it, in the just the energy flowing within one's body, focusing with the top of the head first, and and all the way down. And I would focus on that aliveness, which felt like a tingling to me, like a tingling and a bouncing and a moving. And at a certain point, I would become so focused that I felt like I could feel the atoms bouncing off of each other inside my physical form, which is pretty amazing. Uh yeah, I went deep because I had taken everything else out of my life. Um and so that really allowed me to check in with my to remain super connected to my intuition, and I could really feel out decisions before I made them, and I felt a lot less bothered by the things that had happened to me in the past. Now, this effect was not permanent, and there was a lot more that needed to be done because once I re entered my conscious mind, my egoic mind, there was still a lot of repair that needed to be done. But as far as getting a break and getting a perspective away from all of that and gaining an awareness that that was not all that is, um or all that was super duper pivotal, and it changed my personality, like my anger. Uh i i used to be just a very very angry person, and I led with anger. um which, and there was just like a lot of hurt behind that it wasn't that I couldn't feel anger anymore. I could feel, but it was in its proper place. It was not an integral aspect of my personality anymore. And so that I think was the biggest lasting change. I developed a massive anxiety disorder after that I dealt with for years. um that, still, that was a remnant of my that was a symptom of my complex post-traumatic stress disorder, that I've got a very good handle on now. But that was definitely a process. But the biggest lasting change, I would say, was a personality change.
The personality change meaning the awareness or the integrating of, I mean, I don't know how much similarity we have spiritually, but Carl Jung talks about the shadow. And so, like, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but personality change in that you were integrating some of these things into your life and allowing them to heal, or personality change in that you were more self-aware with regard to the anxiety, or what do you mean by the personality change?
No, the personality in reference to the anger that I was talking about. I was a lot less reactive, a lot less aggressively. I would offend people sometimes on purpose, particularly when I was a teenager, because I was just being treated so poorly at home. But and then after that, later I stopped doing that, but I was incredibly reactive. And I would get into arguments quite frequently, with just really anyone. Yeah, I just, and sometimes shouting arguments and whatnot. I was just a very very angry person. But that truly melted away after that period. The anxiety emerged actually from that period, and I could not figure out why. But it's just because, that was the fear hiding underneath the anger that I now had to deal with. And I had specific memories that I had to feel out, so many memories that I had to feel out and release and allow myself to feel and not run away from. And that was a long process because that required sobriety, which I was not ready for. I developed my drinking dependency after I exited that 3-month meditative period.
I just somehow saw this guy on Instagram. I'll have you listen to it for now.
You want a sugary treat? Sit with it. Be with it. Move through it. You want to turn on the TV, social media, Netflix? Sit in it, sit with it, move through it. You want some weed, some booze? Sit in it, sit with it, move through it. You want to swipe left, swipe right, look for Mr. or Mrs. Right on your dating app? Sit in it, be with it, move through it. With 1,000 ways to escape, sedate, distract, stimulate, numb, and not face ourselves, not face our loneliness, not face the pain of the unloved self. And this is the loop of life. So we keep seeking, searching, needing, trying, wanting, crutching, using, easing, pleasing, soothing, stimulating, distracting, escaping, sedating, constantly, never being with the self. Loneliness is calling you home. That's where the peace is, that's where the worthiness is, that's where the safety is, that's where the wealth is, that's where the love is, but we don't want to sit with the self. And I'm the culprit posting all of this. But that's what I say when I finish a session with someone. Whatever you use to soothe, whether it's social media, weed, booze, whatever it is, don't sit with it. Just sit with it. Even if you just give it 10, 15 minutes, feel that and sit with it and be with it and move through it. Now you start to learn the process. All day long, no. Sit with it, be with it, move through it. And then you can do the work with the inner child. I got you. I'm with you. I love you. It's okay. Breathe. This is all the opportunities, constantly, all day long, to expand, to elevate and evolve consciously.
That's precisely what I do and what I began to do with Eckhart Tolle, moved away from when the memories came back. And then after getting sober, that's what I started to really, really focus on. And I've been sober for nearly, it was since February of 2021. So nearly 3 years now. And this whole, oh wait, is it 3 years and some months? Yeah, so nearly 4 years now. But yeah, I stopped counting because I fortunately don't need to anymore. It's just kind of integrating into a part of my life. But that was the challenge, that was the focus. And it's now a very natural process. Once I start to feel like even a little bit poopy, I stop what I'm doing and I feel it out. And I try not to overanalyze it, because when I first started doing this, I would super duper overanalyze it, and it would like perpetuate this anxiety needlessly. But I would just let the feeling come and stay for as long as it wanted to. But when it was ready to go, I would let it go, because it's all about that balance, because we might also feel compelled to hold on to it for longer than we need to. It's about allowing it and releasing it. Don't push it away. Don't push it to stay. And that's now more or less an automatic process for me, which I have worked hard for, and which took a long time. But it's allowed me to be so much more grounded, in control of myself. I don't like react in ways that I don't understand, that I can't explain. I'm not ruled by my emotions, because I know they're there, and they're allowed to be there because they're a part of me, but they don't dictate what I do. And they don't run my life, which is awesome.
Word. So you and I have become close, and and one of the first times that we spent a lot of time together, you took a moment. You needed a moment, and you meditated. We were at your old apartment because you just moved recently, and so I went into your living room, and you just needed to go within, and that was well, I mean, it was multiple things for me. On one, it was like, hope everything is okay. and on the other hand, it was, well, this is wonderful. Like, I'm so glad that she's someone that does this. And um, so it showed me we had yet another thing in common. And let's talk about where you were when your life folded into mine, which was with BTE and the play
Oh,
that you did so superbly with Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble. So that's where we first met, which was now, I mean, my God, what is it, 8 years ago or something? But
mm-hmm. That was 2017, I believe.
17. Okay, so almost 8 years ago. So with regard to your story and being in Indiana, becoming an artist, abuse, therapy, going to Texas, going to Chicago, going back home multiple times. When did working on this play, The Nether, with, as if I recall, happen actually with multiple companies, not just Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble? When did let's do The Nether. When did that first happen, and how did that transpire into you going to Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I was in two different productions of The Nether. The first one being at the Phoenix Theater in Indianapolis, which was the first equity house that I ever worked in. And it was my third equity show. Second, third. And I was in the rose, like the highest point, really, I think, of my anxiety disorder, but also I was succeeding and getting work and working professionally at a rate that I was just not prepared for. I just but I just kept doing it, and I kept going for it. And that role as a 9-year-old virtual reality prostitute in a Victorian uh digital realm, was really, I think, like my breakout. It was what I became known for, I think, in the community. I had done a couple of shows before then and had done quite well, but that was my first. I think you could say that Iris was the lead. And you, even though it was very much a community show, Iris was the focus, and of the action. And I got a lot of reviews for that, really, really good ones, a lot of subsequent work after that. And it was recommended that I take that role elsewhere, and that I go and reach out to other, because it was the hot play, one of the hot plays that year, The Nether. So many regional theaters around the country were doing The Nether. And so I reached out to Woolly Mammoth, Interact in Pennsylvania, a few different places, and BTE, tiny little lovely BTE. They were the only people to get back to me. And we did a virtual audition, and they said yes to me virtually. I think because, and let me give some background on a bit more background on Iris in The Nether. Yes, she's 9 years old, and she's typically played by an actual child, which is pretty controversial. And the larger theaters, like in Philadelphia and wherever Woolly Mammoth is, I forget, but it's a larger city. They have an easier time with that, and there's no there. For anybody who's concerned, even though the 9-year-old is a prostitute, there are no physical displays of sexuality with the child or anything like that. It's all just talked about. But even in that way, people, it makes people uncomfortable, but it's for a reason. It's for a very good reason, because they have Jennifer Haley had a very important story to tell about the direction that we're heading with technology, and about, sort of the moral quandaries that, look it up. It's a great play. But the small town, and but I was an adult. I was 24 when I auditioned, and I also happen to be 4'9" and have quite a youthful face, even more so back then than I do now at 32. So it was actually a boon for this tiny theater in this very small town where everyone kind of knew everyone, and where they were having trouble finding a child to or designating a child that they were comfortable casting in this role because of the themes. And they were going to go with the director's daughter, who at the time was actually the exact right age, but that also was making him kind of uncomfortable, and a lot of and his wife as well. And so I just kind of showed up on their doorstep, metaphorically, and was like, hey, I'll do it. And they were like, yes, this is perfect. So they brought me in and they housed me, and it was a fantastic experience. And Isaac, you were at one of the talkbacks after one of the performances, which you actually made me aware of years and years later when we both lived in New York. All right, I was not, I wasn't aware that it was you, but yeah, it's so interesting that we crossed paths that long ago, and then again became reacquainted in New York years later.
Most definitely. Yeah. What year was that again?
2017, I believe. I was 24 and then turned 25,
Okay.
and 7 years ago. So yeah, 2017.
I would go to BTE because it was kind of like, if you're not going to go to New York and see Broadway, this is as good as theater can be done in the area. And they put us up on stage, so it was even more intimate. And because you looked such the part, it was so unnerving. Like everybody in the audience, I was really, really uncomfortable. And I remember I was on Facebook a lot at the time, and I'm not now, but I was, you know, different subject, but I remember posting, which is just in my world now, saying posting is just so fucking, anyway. So posting, I did you read my post? I put a post up. Look at me. Anyway, so that was my world at the time. And so I said something to the effect of, go see this play. It was incredible. Theater should make you feel. It should make you, whether that's feel joy or sadness or whatever, it should make you feel. You should be experiencing life. And that's exactly what that play did. They directed it perfectly. They cast it perfectly. They situated the audience perfectly. You felt like, I should not be watching this. Like, you wanted to close your eyes sometimes. And so afterwards, when there was an opportunity for a talk back, I don't remember how I asked you, but I remember very gingerly trying to say, like, how are you? I wanted to ask you, like, how are you capable of doing this? How are your parents okay with you doing this? And then, so I think the first thing that came out was like, can I just ask your age? Because, you're a fantastic actress for being so young. And it's like, oh, okay, this is actually like kind of an adult doing this. Because,
Yeah, I was 24. Yeah,
yeah,
adult, a legal adult for 5 years at that point, nearly 6. Yes, I do remember getting that question a lot. I got that question quite a bit, and I think the audience of Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble's production of The Nether got a very unique experience in that I am the only adult that I know of who has played this role and appeared to be a child. I've seen clips of a couple of college productions wherein the young lady playing Iris does not appear to be a child and is really Jennifer Haley, the playwright, puts a note in the front of her of the book saying the person playing Iris needs to appear to be a child. They cannot appear to be an adult. But you and the rest of the BTE Nether audience got the benefit of, I think, maybe a slightly more uncomfortable production because I was an adult. We did a bit more touchy-feely stuff, not sexual, but like I was playing with the actor who played Papa's hair. We were hugging each other a lot. There was a lot of cuddly wuddliness, and that just really, again, it's not discomfort for the sake of discomfort, but it was for the sake of storytelling. And yes, so I got that question quite a bit, and I relish giving the answer, to be quite honest, because the reactions were just so delicious, and the relief on all of your faces was just so nice to me.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone who has not experienced it, you should look it up and go see it at your local theater. It's a perennially relevant piece. The Nether relates to you and I meeting each other, and so that was, as you said, 2017. The next year, I went to New York. Did you go to New York in 2018 as well? I forget this
Yeah,
part. Yeah.
July 2018.
So fast forward, and we end up working together in New York. At some point, you forwarded me the script, one of the first versions of Outcall.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm an actor for a living, I constantly am being handed scripts. And pretty much without exception, when it's from someone I know that's either a friend or a contemporary, in the back of my head, I'm preparing to, how do I graciously turn down this offer, because I get so many shit scripts handed to me. And it's just the reality. And I read it, and within the first page, I was like, okay, so she really knows what she's doing. I did not anticipate this. Like, you actually know how to write. Now I'm waiting for like your grammatic errors. Nope. She's everything. All the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Like, she knows how to write. She knows what she's writing. She knows why she's writing it. And by the end of it, I was just, wait, am I impressed? Yeah. Yeah, I'm impressed by this piece. And like, you're just, that's not what you anticipate. And so I know that you had me in mind. I think is what you told me. Can you describe what the impetus for this story was? I know it's a memoir. There's an artistic license you put into it, as I'm now discovering, with some of the character not being entirely your experience. And I know that my character, Dave, is an amalgam of different people from your world. Please describe the impetus of, I'm going to write this, and when and why.
I fucking love talking about this because the process truly felt like, I'm a believer in magic, all right? It felt like magic to me. I am not someone who writes constantly or does deadlines or what have you. I am also, I'm just engaged in whatever art is compelling me, whatever part of my multi-hyphenate is compelling me at the time. And what I had been doing for a while was nude and topless house cleaning. I had been doing that for some time because I needed money. I had lost my job twice, and it was one of the gigs that I was doing. And so frequently, because of the conversations I was having with clients, because of the work itself, I would often think for months straight, I ought to write a play about this. I ought to write but then every time I tried to put it together, um, it just, there was something missing from it, or it just didn't feel quite right, or it wasn't like, what kind of story am I telling, blah blah blah. But then eventually, at one point, my thoughts went back further and I started to think about and recall my time as an escort. And that creatively came to the forefront of my mind. I thought, I think I will write a play about that. But I didn't, that didn't happen immediately. Um, it was just something that I was mulling over in my brain that would resurface every now and again. Started working with you, started working with an elderly male Jewish client as a I became an elder care companion. Nothing sexual at all with that. Just an aspect of caregiving that is non-clinical, just about being social and spending time and displaying empathy and care in that way. Um, and taking care of the mental and emotional aspect of the client's life, and also having met a few other people just purely socially, like as friends along the way. um the character of That's when the character of Dave started to form, and I think I was partially conscious of it and partially not. It was partially subconscious how Dave was coming together, but Dave gained form. I think gained physical form. I think when I met you, Isaac, with the work that we were doing together, and I went to see you at this production. I had not in this production. I did not make you aware of it at all. I was just watching you to see how you moved, and to see your acting when I wasn't involved with it. In Con at Brooklyn Art House, where we're going to be producing Outcall next month. But I went to see you in that. And again, I had not started writing yet. I started because that was in August, I believe. I started writing in September. And over the course of 2 weeks, I wrote the first draft of Outcall from start to finish. And I just sat down and I poured it out. I like with intentions, with no specific intentions of getting any, specific number of pages out in any given setting. I just kept writing until my intuition told me I was done. And when I needed to imagine the two characters interacting, it was you who I saw in my brain. And you were Dave stand-in, and I knew I was going to ask you to play Dave. I didn't know if you were going to accept or if you were going to be available or whatever. But just imagining you in that space as the character of Dave helped me to form the scenes and create the dialogue and all of that stuff. And it happened, like I said, so quickly. I am not a fan of a long, drawn out, years long writing process. Other people can do it if they want, but if I'm going to write something, it's because I'm going to like make it, because it's going to be on stage. And so I'm not going to take very long to write it. And of course there were multiple edits, cuts, word changes, stuff like that, normal part of the writing process. But the first draft got out pretty quick. And then when it was done, I think like a couple days later, I shared it with you. And I was pleased with your response.
Yeah. And we did a couple staged readings. You wisely took some notes from people at the talkback from the first staged reading and made some edits based on them that you thought were constructive, and I completely agree. And that brings us to Marion, someone in France who ends up being someone that is acting and singing in New York in the United States.
Yeah, my family also weren't music artists as a main job career, but art was always a part of our lives. And yeah, I've always loved to try a bit of everything. And so So it started with playing instruments and singing and then directing. And as soon as I got a phone and I was able to discover everything, I started directing short films and gathering everybody with this. And I ended up in New York very randomly. I know that I wanted to speak another language. I always love to discover cultures and more about the world. And first I was a little scared. I tried London, but my English was really really bad. So London wasn't open to me, and I ended up in New York, and yeah, had a little journey there. It's been now it's my 4th year in the city, and yeah, it hasn't been always easy to find people to keep you on track, healthy people around you. Very tough out there in New York for performers. But I feel like I'm in a place today where I'm surrounded by healthy people that wants the best for me. And work wise, I love to. I've been in College Villains, and this show has taught me so much about professionalism and work. I started as an actor, just the lead Marguerite. Then I jumped on the stage manager job, then discovered another role I could play, and then assisting the Val, our director, with the changes in the space and everything. And I loved everything about it. I loved learning and stimulating myself um, by learning so many different jobs in the same production. And yeah, and I ended up going to the first public reading of Outcall and falling in love with the writing, the story, the characters, the emotions, the jokes, and I wanted to help in any way to make it possible, to make it happen, to make it seen, because I think that it's something that people should see, and the more the merrier.
If you can be so honest, since we're with the playwright right now, but if you can be so honest, what was your takeaway? Like when the first time you didn't read it, you just saw it performed as a staged reading the first time. So yeah, how did it affect you? What did it make you feel, think, whatever?
Well, I remember I was very tired that night and was second guessing if I should send a sorry, can't come, and ended up just taking my bags and going. I actually missed the little first minute or something, and I ended up in that room. Really didn't know what I was expecting. And yeah, the first what came to me was the writing. The I don't know that word in English, but that finesse in French. How I don't. I mean, finesse will be the intelligence of the words, the way you pick the words. You're not going in circles. You go straight to the point. You're being forward, and yeah. So the not trying to spoil everything of the play, but the beginning takes you in a place where you're kind of floating. You're kind of um yeah, you're kind of seeing a spark of the characters, and there's a shift. It felt like warm in the heart seeing this Jade character, um who's so, I mean, with Paeton, I don't know, I discovered also a different face of you because we were working together in on another job, and seeing such a different face, a different way to speak, was so incredible too. And so this Jade was so touching, so strong, and yet so so fragile. She had her not fragile, but her sensitivity and emotions. Yeah, it's I I don't want to say too much about Jade, but she's someone you want to get to know. You want the best for her. You want to be seen and to be heard, and that's why I wanted to help with that.
How do you think this is going to affect audiences? Just curious.
Mm. How is it going to affect them? Well, a lot of people, and I know that how do I put this? It was a lot of relief on some things that Jade says that we want to say. We want to say it to Dave, and we want everybody to say it to Dave. And hearing Jade saying this feels really good. And yeah, what I it was also a review because we collected some reviews from the reading, and I know that this was something that came out too. And yeah, it makes you think, and you just don't expect to like these character as much. I'm talking especially about Dave. As the play starts and at the play's end, it is incredible the journey, the emotional journey that we go through, the attachment that we get through for the characters through the play. So it certainly makes you feel uncomfortable, laugh, and happy and loving. All these emotions come through you while you watch this play.
And Paeton, what do you hope audiences experience take away from this?
I hope multiple things. Also, thank you, Marion. That all made me feel very fuzzy. Loved hearing your perspective. Yes, several different things. One, a just a sense of openness and empathy. Because I think what this play does, and one of my goals for it, is to expand one audience's awareness of the different the levels of just beyond the surface, below the surface of people's of experiences different from their own. I think both characters on a surface level could be quite unrelatable to many people. A very wealthy man, most people are not as wealthy as Dave, and a prostitute of color, an escort, a sex worker, what have you. I know that there are, different terminologies that different people are comfortable with, but a sex worker of color. And we, come, because we're humans and we have egos, we come in with our preconceived notions about, both people. But through their interactions and their openness and their willingness to be vulnerable, we gain this such a deeper awareness of the depth and profundity of human experience, particularly human experience that is different from our own. So I hope that this play promotes empathy in multiple different regards. Also, I really, really hope that these characters inspire audiences to be more vulnerable with each other, particularly, trusted individuals, not necessarily strangers like these characters are doing, but these are very special circumstances, of course. But whoever you want to be vulnerable with, I hope this play inspires you to do that, because really our barriers to human connection, and really this play is about human connection, are the masks that we wear. They are the walls that we put up. They are our unwillingness to be our true selves for fear of being rejected, for fear of not being seen, not being understood, and all of that. But I think what is so essential for us now as a society is to get to those deep levels with each other. We have to have really, really hard conversations about our society, about what's wrong with it, about economic inequality, about homelessness, about about race, all of these themes that come up in the play, and specifically about the plight of sex workers, like that we're not talking about that enough. And in order to have all of these very necessary conversations that we need to have in order to move past this current state of just like perpetual separateness and tribalism and hate and all that ickiness, we have to have the conversations that we're not willing to have right now. And it's not just about, town halls about race and stuff like that, though that's important. It's about these one-on-one conversations that we're having with each other, where we're willing to open up and lay bare our emotions, our fears, the lessons we've learned, and be willing to learn from each other. That's what these characters are doing. These characters are living by example, and they're leading by example. And they are loving. Love is so, so important to me. And I think it's an essential aspect of the future of our society if we are to have a future. So I hope that audiences come away with that, galvanized and inspired to open up and to love, because we cannot love if we are not open.
Depending on when you're listening to this, if you're listening to it before January 23rd to the 26th of 2025, you can click that link that you will find in the description. That will lead you to a way you can donate to Paeton. It will also lead you to another link where you can purchase tickets to come see the show. And then you'll also find the Instagram link on there as well. If you're listening after that, well, ignore me. We're all good. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you, Paeton, for writing it and for including me.
Thank you.
And thank you for allowing us to create art together.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for both of you for agreeing to be a part of this. I cannot wait to dive in.
Come see Outcall.
Perfect.